Hey everyone, I will be covering New Zealand with a demonstration run on one of the stages from the Colin McRae DLC. This run will help to show you what to expect from New Zealand as a location. I will be playing with the Dualshock 4 controller on this run, and the whole stage will be with commentary. The replay footage will be seen in cockpit view, so you can see my exact steering inputs throughout the whole stage. A couple of things about New Zealand before we move on to the run. While there aren't too many high-speed sections in this stage that I'm about to show you, some stages in New Zealand does have some long sections in high speed, and that is where you'll be able to gain a lot of time. So don't be afraid to push it in high-speed sections or straight roads. With that being said, you need to be careful of the edges and the fences in New Zealand. They can mess your whole run up if you hit them too bad. When you feel like or you can predict that you're close to hitting an obstacle, let go of the throttle completely and correct your steering. Although sometimes it's just too late and you can't do anything about it. But try to be aware of the danger zones. A good thing about New Zealand is there aren't too many bumps. So it's not a bumpy location like Greece, but there are many slow sections, especially in the stage that I'm about to show you. You need to use a lot of weight transfer here. Lifting a lot and turning a lot is what you should expect. But I think that's it. Let's get into the run. So I will be using a replay footage from my last run. I'm using the stage 1 from the New Zealand 1989 stage, or scenario from the Colin McRae DLC. So yes, it's a demonstration run. I'll talk a little bit of what to be aware of in New Zealand. And since we're driving with the rear-wheel drive car, the Sierra Cosworth, I will note some things to prepare for when driving this car. First of all, you can add a little bit of stability control if you don't feel comfortable driving with any assists at all, because that is my personal style. I like driving with no assists, even with rear-wheel drives. So I have no assists, but you can add a bit of stability control for the stability. I would advise not to use traction control. If you're going to use it, set it to the minimum, like 1 or something, just to the lowest setting, because you just lose power that way. My personal style is just, I like having more power but high risk, but I'm aware that not everyone have that style, so it's totally okay to add a little bit of stability control. But you'd be surprised once you get used to driving with no assists, how fast you can actually become. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's up to you. You can try it out. And I'm playing with a manual transmission. I have the clutch override on, so I can use the clutch if I want to get a better slide or get early on the power. Building the revs up during corners. So yeah, let's get into it. So there's a slight turn here in the beginning. So I'm counter steering a lot, as you can see in my steering inputs. Because rear wheel drives, usually they oversteer a lot. So you want to counter steer. Just go in the opposite direction many of the times. You also want to be careful with your your throttle inputs. So throttle control is really important. You can't just push the throttle all the way each time, especially during tight corners and just corners in general. You want to be careful with the throttle. Manage the throttle to give it a little bit of a gas. Sometimes you could just tap the throttle, like tap, 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 and just go like 70% throttle. But don't go 100% unless you're like almost at a straight line, or else you might spin out. And if you can predict a dangerous situation, then just let go of the gas and just counter steer. If you know the corners, if you've done this stage a couple of times, you kind of know the stage and you'll learn when to turn. And sometimes you can turn earlier than you might realize. So you can kind of like get closer to the apex. So I mean closer to the edge. It's a bit risky, but if you can pull it off, it can save you some time. So you don't, go too wide. Just in general, when you tackle corners. But yeah, there are lots of short corners, lots of long corners in New Zealand. So here, like, for example, here, you want to, with these tighter corners, you want to use the handbrake. And I also tap the clutch a little bit. I do a little bit of a clutch kick with the L1 button. That's where I mapped the clutch, so I can get early on the power. I build the ref, and then I can exit faster. Not all the time, but sometimes I execute it right. It could have been faster, but it's all good. So see, close to the apex. If you can, if you dare. Also, when you get to straights, you actually want to push the throttle a little more, maybe even 100%, because you can gain a lot of time. Because these short corners, you have to be like corners and stuff. You have to be careful with. You really want to manage your throttle and steer, counter steer. Like you have to steer all the time, especially if you're using no assists. But on the straights, you can just push the throttle. Of course, just watch out for when you get to a corner. Then you might want to just let go of the throttle a bit before entering a corner, and brake if necessary. But do slight brakes. Don't push the brake too hard. So here you can see I'm getting close to the edge of the road. This way you can save time instead of going too wide. So I'm staying close to the edge of the road. Not too close, but a bit close. And there's gonna be a gate coming up here. Here you just want to push the throttle. These straights, you want to push it. It wasn't a long straight, but you just pushing the throttle there could save you, gain you some time. Another thing, if you're playing with manual transmission, sometimes to prevent your car from spinning or to prevent yourself from losing your stability when driving, you can always gear up once. Like if you're in third gear and you're almost about to lose control, just gear up to fourth, or from second to third. It depends. So just gear up once to keep the stability. It's all about keeping the stability here, especially when you're driving with the rear-wheel drive, like the Sierra Cosworth. So counter steering, keeping that stability. Here I also use the handbrake and a little bit of the clutch. Get a better slide. Getting close to the apex as much as possible here. This is a dangerous situation. This is a dangerous section here. Sometimes you might underestimate it. But this corner here, it's an unseen corner, or whatever the co-driver calls it. Here you want to brake and then just turn earlier. So I stay in first gear through the corner here. You see I'm in first gear here. I turn, and I also used the handbrake, obviously, to get a better rotation. I use a bit of the clutch as well. I just do a slight clutch kick mid corner, just to get on the power. But yeah, it's really important to be. If you go too wide here, it's almost over. You want to be as close to this corner as possible, close to the apex. Remember, you don't have to brake all the time. If you're tackling long corners, it's not necessary to brake. Just use your throttle management. Just your throttle inputs will be enough. Just lift sometimes and then turn. You need to use weight transfer in New Zealand, like a lot. You just have to, sometimes you just have to lift and then just turn. You don't have to brake all the time, just lift and turn. Getting close to the apex. Be careful here so you don't hit the edge. I did a little bit, but I saved it. Getting close to the apex here. There are some really secret corners in this stage. When I mean secret, it's like you don't expect them to be that sharp. You don't expect some of the corners to be so sharp, so you'll be caught by surprise. I mean, even when the co-driver warns you. You kind of, yeah, sometimes you have maybe, I mean, maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but sometimes I have too much confidence and I would just, like here I was maybe a bit too careful, because I know, I knew from the last couple of times I went too wide. Yeah, some of those corners I'm being extra careful with. You could go faster than me, but I was just being extra careful. Especially because I wanted to keep my stability. I'm playing with no assists, so I'm being a bit careful. Still somewhat fast, but a bit careful in some sections. So, close to the apex. You don't want to go too wide here. So here you don't want to go too wide. Close to the corner. Exactly. Sometimes it's okay to just lift. If you feel like you're losing control of the car, or if you're about to go too wide, just lift. Lift completely and just steer. If you can predict a situation, if you can predict a dangerous situation, just lift completely. And then just turn, using weight transfer. Oh, sorry. So here I use the handbrake and the clutch. Release clutch and then on with the power. Hard on the power. Here's a little bit of a straight, semi-straight, so you just keep on the power. Go down to third gear and then turn. Here close to the apex. Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah, close to the corner here and then through the gate. Don't go too wide. Just on with the power and then just through here, and there's a turn here you need to be careful with, so you don't go too wide. The biggest mistakes you can make in this stage is going too wide, and you will just go off the edge or off the road. So you really need to be careful with going too wide. Sometimes you need to turn a little earlier than you might think. But it just, once you've done the stage a couple of times, like fully, you will kind of know how much you can push through each section. Clutch, just to get a better slide. Handbrake and the clutch. Oh, I almost messed it up there. Just counter steering, just keeping that stability. Stability is really important here. You're driving with one of the hardest cars to handle in the Colin McRae DLC. And also close to the apex here, you'd also want to not go too wide here, just close to the apex. Just lift and then turn. Same with here. Lift and turn. Oh, maybe I got a little bit too close to the apex, but I kind of saved it. I almost clipped the edge. Handbrake. A little bit of clutch kick. Again, handbrake. Clutch kick. Okay, I made almost messed it up there. Yeah, this is not a flawless run, but the time is somewhat decent. There's a bit of leeway. Close to the apex here. Again, lots of these sections that looks like this. I don't know how you call them, but these tight ones, you just want to get close to the apex and turn earlier. You don't want to turn too late. Handbrake, clutch. I think we're near to a somewhat straight, where you can really push the power. Oh, I almost lost control there, you see. Almost lost my stability, but I counter-steered. I let go of the throttle, so I saved myself. Let go of the throttle, third gear. So there's a tight corner here as well. Go down to first gear, clutch and handbrake. I go down to first gear here, just to be careful, because I don't want to go off the road or the bridge. I don't know what you call it. You call that a bridge? So we're almost at the finish line. And I almost lost control there again. And that's the run. So the run wasn't flawless, like I said. But I set a somewhat decent time. What was the time? 8:40? 5:51. So it's not too bad. I mean, I have like I am like 1 minute ahead of the second AI, or the first AI is what you call it. Sorry. Obviously, I'm in first place here. So you have like you want to be like maybe 40 to 50 seconds ahead of the first AI. But yeah, there's some leeway if you follow my time here. So I'm just gonna show this one stage just so you get an idea of New Zealand. I might make another tips and tricks video for New Zealand on another stage if I have some spare time. But for now, I'll just keep this one as the only one. I don't know yet. It depends if I have a bit of time. But let's go into my settings. So these are my Dualshock 4 controller settings. You can copy everything here. I always use the same setting, DS4 setting, for every stage, every car. So I don't adjust them, really. You could maybe adjust them depending on the car, but I've never bothered doing it. So yeah, just copy all of this. And these are my button mapping options. So I have clutch as L1, brake as L2, accelerate as R2, handbrake circle. And I'm playing manual transmission, so I gear up with X and I gear down with square. So anything I need to show? So manual transmission, I have ABS off, and I have stability control off, and traction control off. like I said, you can use a bit of stability control for the Sierra Cosworth car, the rear-wheel drive, because it's a pretty hard car to drive. So set it up to maybe 3, and then have traction control off. If you don't want it off, then maybe set it to 1. So that's what I would recommend, but it's up to you. You want to play with assist or you don't want to play with any assists. So with assists, the risk is lower, but you're not nearly as fast. Without assists, you're faster, there's more power, but the risk is higher. So it depends on your driving style. If you just want to meet the requirement, maybe using a bit of assists is fine. So it's not like you're trying to set world records, so unless I'm wrong. Maybe you do want to set world records. So yeah, that is New Zealand. I hope this tips and tricks video could prove to be useful. New Zealand, in my opinion, is not the hardest location. Also, the good thing with the scenarios is normally New Zealand have some quite lenient times, so you don't have to be super perfect. Some areas are tricky. You need to be careful of not clipping any of the edges or going too wide in some of the sharper corners. But that's basically it. Once you've done New Zealand a couple more times, there's a lot of the New Zealand stages here in the DLC. So you will become quite acquainted with the location. So you'll get used to it, and you'll only become faster. And yeah, these were my tips and tricks. I thank you for watching.